Most companies spend money on employees and never fully see the value. They don't know what to use when it's available or even understand what they're entitled to. Today's guest helps businesses close that gap, and he's here to break down why employees' benefits matter and why so many strategies miss the mark and how companies can build packages that people actually engage with. I'm Sim Payne, fractional HRD, chartered MCIPD, and over the last 25 years, I've worked in senior HR globally across 16 countries, partnering with founders and leaders, supporting employees to build workplaces that they actually love. I'm here to challenge bad HR, the kind of HR that protects systems instead of people and gives my profession a really bad name. So my guest today is Paul Connolly. He's a strategic employee benefit specialist who helps organizations make sense of benefits, well-being, and employee support in a way that drives engagement. He works with businesses to make benefits more relevant, more usable, and more aligned with what employees generally need, not what looks good on paper. In this conversation, we're going to unpack why so many benefit strategies miss the mark, what creates a strong one, what it actually looks like, and how companies can create packages that people truly value. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for the great intro. And yeah, good to be here. And hopefully we'll have a good conversation about all things employee benefits.
Amazing. So what first pulled you into employee benefits?
Great question to start. It wasn't planned, actually. So before I got into employee benefits 10, 11 years ago, I worked in business energy as a broker, so working with companies to set up their business gas and electric contracts, which wasn't very exciting. And a family member said to me, have you ever heard of Vitality? And there was a job going at Vitality, a self-employed role. And Vitality is one of the biggest private medical and life insurers in the UK. So I basically had a look at Vitality and thought, insurance, not quite sure. But once I actually understood what private medical insurance was and the benefit to individuals, and then also the benefit to organizations as an employee benefit, that's what got me really excited. And actually getting into Vitality in one of my first roles, helping people, helping organizations, understanding how healthcare works in the UK with the NHS and private practice, it just got me really excited. So that started my journey into employee benefits and into founding Connolly Collective.
I love that. So what's the biggest misconception about employee benefits?
The biggest misconception about employee benefits, I would say, is having and purchasing employee benefits and having a strategy around employee benefits, because they're not the same thing. Lots of business owners, business leaders, even HR people, they'll think, we've got private medical insurance, we've got a death in service policy, we've got an all singing, all dancing EAP or mental health counselling. So the box is ticked, we've got the benefits package, it's all done. But actually having a strategy around, are those benefits fit for purpose? Do they suit your employees and the demographic? And the most important thing, are you communicating those benefits? If you don't have a strategy, it doesn't matter what benefits you've got. You can have all those benefits listed on a benefits platform or listed in your onboarding document. But if people don't understand what benefits they have and how to use those benefits, then there's no point in having them anyway. And that is a real big misconception, because a lot of HR leaders that I speak to, or business owners or managing directors, they'll reel off all these benefits. But when I ask about communications and personalization and if those benefits are being used, that's where the questions come, and they say they're not sure, they don't know. And that is one of the big misconceptions, because having benefits and having a strategy around benefits, whether you're a small business with 20 staff or a large business, they're two completely different things. And I would also say one of the misconception is that employee benefits are an HR problem. It's only HR who deals with benefits. HR procure benefits. HR has to communicate benefits, and that's not the case. Benefits are a business problem. And when you sit around a leadership table and you're talking about absence, presenteeism, sickness, engagement, employee benefits play a role in that. So it's not just a HR problem.
you saying that, and you saw the smirk come on my face, and it came about because I've heard that so many times. Like, you guys take it, you guys fix it. And I think a lot of that falls under the thing. I've had a few conversations recently where we've spoken about HR not necessarily being at the table, businesses that don't have them at the table, or if they do have them at the table, it's one slide right at the end of their full leadership day that sometimes they get to it, sometimes they don't, sometimes they rush through it. And I think that's why they also miss the importance of benefits, because it's like right at the end of the stack and something they're not particularly thinking about or thinking that it's important.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. And benefits, people is one of the biggest costs, if not the biggest cost to a business. And looking after those people, making sure that their well-being is looked after, that they know they can get access to healthcare,
Mm,
financial well-being, whatever it might be, plays a huge part, particularly in 2026 and going forward, because it's not just about salary anymore. And
yeah,
business is a huge issue with long-term absence,
yeah,
sickness, and engagement, and benefits play a huge part in that.
definitely that. It is definitely that. So why do you think so many companies think that they have a strong benefits package and then the employees, they just barely engage with it?
Yeah, I think really it's a bit of a confidence gap. So,
Mm,
HR people that procure benefits, that manage employee benefits, that look for employee benefits, or business owners, business leaders, depending on the size of the business,
mhm,
they know what benefits they have and they're dealing with the benefits. They're dealing with their benefits broker and their consultant and all of that. But actually, it's around the confidence of everybody else in that business. Does
yeah,
the managing director know what benefits they have access to? Does Paul on the phones know what benefits he's got access to? Do the drivers know what benefits they've got access to? Because actually, communication is key. And what
mhm,
happens a lot is companies will have lots of benefits listed down, but they don't communicate the benefits. And
right,
therefore, the HR team thinks, yeah, we've got a great benefits package, but nobody's using the benefits. Nobody knows what benefits they've got access to. And
mhm,
actually, benefits don't belong in one email once a year. They don't belong in a PDF document stuck in SharePoint Drive that nobody ever looks at.
yeah,
Benefits are included or should be included in every conversation and actually be made relevant. That's another key thing here is that companies think they've got all of these insurances as benefits and they're really great. And don't get me wrong, they really are good benefits. But actually, what does Paul at 35 want versus Keith, who's nearing retirement,
that's
versus
it.
a new joiner who's joining in their first job? Are the
Mhm,
benefits relevant to people in their life cycle, where they are in their life, whether
yeah,
they're getting their first job, buying a house, having children, whether there's been a death in the family, whether they're retiring? Are the benefits relevant? So I think a lot of companies think they've got a strong benefits package, but
mhm.
actually if it's not being communicated, if it's not relevant, if people don't know about it, then people aren't going to use the benefits.
It's not going to work. I've worked in companies where, you know, the former that you explained, like it's a PDF document, it's done during onboarding and then it's forgotten about. And then I've worked at companies that have handled it very, very well, where they have literally spoken about it in town halls and group meetings and given regular people updates. So we would appear and give regular updates. And then, like, literally training the middle management, because, like, obviously, sometimes when things happen to employees, they don't necessarily come to HR first. They go to their line manager first. And if sometimes the line managers don't understand or don't know, that can create an issue further down the line. But if we support them and train them and give them this information and tell them about benefits that people can access, as you said, if somebody passes away or if something else happens, they can be the first port of call. And so the employee has some overview and then they come to us to get the full remit of what they need to do. I think sometimes companies miss a trick with not pulling the middle management in to understand and learn that stuff, you know.
No, I totally agree. And managers, it's something that I do in my role. So working with the managers within an organization to train them on the employee benefits, because the
Mhm.
benefits are about it is about value to the employee's health and well-being, but they're also a business tool. And a
Yeah,
really good example of this around the management part is group income protection as a benefit. That as a benefit, group income protection, sick pay insurance, as it might also be known as,
yeah,
those managers, when an employee goes off sick, they should be engaging with that provider, with that insurer, as well as their HR team, maybe occupational health, and they should be
Mhm.
having a conversation to put into place what is known as in the market early intervention. And that's all around how do we get the employee the support to get them back into work as fast as possible. And that's a benefit to the employee because nobody wants to be off work, but it's
Yeah.
also a benefit to the business. But what I find is where managers don't really know or understand what that benefit is,
Mm.
or how it works, or about the services available, they do exactly what you've just described. They miss a trick, and the organization misses a trick. So,
Yeah.
training managers on what's available and in what scenarios they can signpost people to benefits is really, really important.
Definitely. I think more businesses need to focus on that, like work with somebody like yourself to make sure that managers understand it and realize how important their role is going forward. So, thinking about that, walk us through what makes an employee benefits strategy effective in like simple terms.
Yeah, it's a big question, but I think in simple terms, it's got to be the benefits package has to be built around your people, not just
Yeah.
your budget.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a budget. Every organization has a budget, and we know that that's the case. But there's no point putting benefits in place because they're cheap or because they tick a box if they're not built around your people. So
Mhm.
thinking about your organization, if people are struggling with certain areas of their health, so that could be mental well-being, financial well-being, it could be their sleep, nutrition. You've got to look at the data within the business and build the benefits package around the problems, the struggles, and the opportunities that are applicable to the people in your organization,
Yeah.
and then apply the budget conversation to it. I think in terms of the budget part, the benefits package, as an HR team that are setting up a benefits package, it's got to be commercially defensible. So you
Mhm.
can't just spend a load of money on something that's not going to work or where you've not really understood the ROI, the return on investment. You've
Yeah.
got to understand actually by putting in private medical insurance, this is the impact as an organization that we think we're going to see over the next 6, 12, 18 months. So I
Mhm.
think it's going to be putting in benefits where you can defend them in a leadership team or to your managing director or finance director. And then I think also the third part to this, I would say, is communication. You've
Yeah.
got to communicate your benefits regularly to all people, not just when you launch them. Because I've been there. I've worked with organisations where I've been out. We've done a big presentation on all of these really great benefits, and then
Mhm.
9 months down the line, I get the phone call to say, nobody's using the benefits pool. Can we do another presentation? And that's just too late. So
It's
you've
too long.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to be communicating benefits when people join, when there are those life stage events in people's lives, and you've got to be pushing people into the right benefits at the right time. And
Yeah.
that's where you're going to get the best impact. So for me, it's around build your benefits around your people, not just your budget. Make
Mhm.
sure you can defend the budget and defend the spend internally so it's not cut, in 6 or 12 months' time, and
Yeah.
then make sure you're communicating those benefits in the right way regularly to people at all stages.
I love that. And then, like, if you had to break down benefits into like three core categories that you think businesses should have, or what would they be?
Yeah, so for me, I think you can break benefits down and break benefits and well-being down into different areas. You can think about physical well-being, financial
Mhm.
well-being, emotional well-being, all of these different areas. But for me, I think when we're thinking about benefits from an organization perspective, we need
Mhm.
to think about protection. So
Yeah.
financial protection, health protection. So things like life assurance or death in service programs, things like income protection and sick pay insurance, things like private medical insurance. So actually, if an employee really needs that protection, whether that be for health or financial reasons, you've got them covered and you can give them that peace of mind.
Right.
I think then is the second part I would say would be prevention and preventing things from happening. So you've got the financial, the health protection there, the medical insurance, the life insurance, but actually you don't want people to get there right away. So how can you prevent people from becoming unwell, from struggling with finances?
Right.
And as organizations, you haven't got all the answers, but things like when it comes to health, you can give people access to health screening, cancer screening, for example. You can
Yeah.
help people understand their physical health. You can help people with financial coaching, with understanding their pension, with managing their budget. So I think prevention is the second core focus. And then for me, the third would be engagement.
Yeah.
Again, you've got to make sure people know what they've got access to and how to access it. And that's every day. That's not just a, if
Yeah.
the worst happens, you can go and use your private medical insurance. It's how do you manage your budget? How do you understand your pay slip? How do you manage your mental health and well-being? Are you thinking about your sleep and your nutrition and mindfulness? And these are everyday things. So
Mhm.
for me, it's around protecting people, giving them that peace of mind and security, give prevention, making sure you're helping people along the way and stopping them from getting unwell if possible.
Yeah.
And then also engagement, making sure people know exactly where to go, what to use, and how to use it.
It makes sense. As you're talking, all these questions percolate in my brain. But like, why do you think employee benefits matter so much right now?
I think employee benefits have always mattered. I
Mhm.
think they matter right now at this point because there's a lot going on in the world, not
Yeah.
just the UK. And I think things have changed. So, cost of living crisis
Hmm.
is having a huge impact on people with all the global affairs and things that are happening around the world and the
Yeah.
impact on fuel and all of that type of thing and the cost of food. So, you've got the cost of living is putting people under a lot of strain. You've got concerns around the NHS and waiting times and neurodiversity and lots of different things that are impacting people and families and children, and that's impacting work. And then also, the market for recruitment is really tough right now. And when you
Yeah.
apply for a job, it's not you versus 10 anymore, it's you versus 100
Oh,
or you
hundreds.
versus 1,000. Yeah. So I think around cost of living, the NHS within the UK, and also recruitment and retention, these are huge areas. And people now, when they apply for a job, they're not just looking at the top line salary. They're not just thinking, this is a £35,000 a year job. They're looking for, how is this company going to support me? What benefits do I get access to? Do
Hmm.
I get private access to private medical insurance? Have I got the financial protections? Are they going to help me when I'm looking to get on the ladder and buy my own house? All of these things, flexible working. Can I work at home because that's going to reduce my costs? Can I, or do I have to be in the office 5 days a week? I think
Hmm.
it matters so much right now to individuals because of those things.
Yeah.
But from a business perspective, it really matters because it's not just about retention anymore. It's about how do you get the best talent? Because as a business, you want the best people to apply for your jobs and you want the best talent in your organization. And if you're not offering employee benefits, and you're only offering the basic pension and a salary,
Yeah.
the likelihood is your competitors are offering more than you, and you're going to lose out on the best talent.
I,
And
I,
therefore, there's a lot going on from an
yeah.
individual perspective and an organizational perspective.
I think so. I think you're definitely right. I feel like a lot of businesses since COVID, I mean, and if COVID feels like an eternity away now, but the impact of that had a ripple effect. And now we have AI that's creating a ripple effect. And what I've seen is a few organizations, they're kind of getting a little bit lazy when it comes to looking after their people and doing what's best because in their minds they just think there is talent out there that are desperate to work, so we don't really care. We're just going to pull them in. They're just going to be happy that they've got a job and happy to work with us. But that desperation or that feeling only lasts for so long, right? You bring that person in and you offer them nothing proper in return, no support, as you said, no benefits, nothing that offers that employee protection. They will leave, especially if they're good at what they do. And then you have to think of the impact of that. If you're just kind of being lackadaisical and not using a proper strategy, thought process to bring great people in and retain those great people and give them what they need, what's the impact cost to your business? Because it's not just the recruitment fee, it's the ripple on when somebody's not working out or they leave you with a big hole and then your other staff are having to rally around to cover that job. That's the impact on them. That creates more sickness, and then you don't have a benefit that supports those people returning to work. It has a massive impact on the
Huge
business if you're not thinking about it.
Huge impact. And I think you're absolutely right. And actually, when I work with businesses, if you've
Yeah.
got a business that's paying £35,000 a year as a salary, for example, for a
Mhm.
role, but they also get access to private medical insurance, they can also have access to dental care, they can also get access to
Yeah.
preventative healthcare screenings, they get financial protection, life insurance benefits, all of these different things. When that other company comes knocking on the door and says, Paul, we'll give you an extra 3 grand, an extra 4 grand a year, but there's no benefits.
Yeah.
Actually, that employee's thinking, well, yeah, 3, 4 grand, take off the tax, NI, etc., etc. Actually, I can go and see a consultant if I need to. I get care. I've used the benefits here. They're talked
Right.
about, like, this company really cares about me.
That's it.
Paul isn't
That's it.
walking out the door for an extra 3 or 4 grand anymore. He's staying where he is.
There you
And
go.
that's the difference, because it's not just the recruitment fee, it's everything else around it.
Everything.
Yeah,
It
it's what their
literally
colleagues
is
think.
everything.
Yeah, it's loads. It's lots of stuff, and that's where benefits really hold their own,
Yeah.
because you don't even have to use the benefits. You've just got to know they're there,
That's
and
it.
you know this company does actually care. I've got all of these benefits. If
That's
I
it.
need it, I can use them, and that's really important.
I think a well thought out like benefit strategy speaks to the fact that the company sees the people as an asset. And a lot of companies have forgotten about that. We've moved away from businesses that are like manufacturing or certain things. So it's your product that is the business, but you still need people to help you build that. But a lot of stuff we've moved into, like the AI, tech companies, I've worked in tech on and off for 25 years. You know, it's that tacit knowledge that's in people's brains. And if you're not treating your people as an asset, all of that information, your product kind of leaves.
Exactly. Yeah, and
And it's about remembering that your people are your asset, and having a great benefits package can help do that. It shows people that you've created this safety net, that you care, like you've wrapped them up and you care, and it makes people stay. Definitely makes people stay.
100%. And actually, when you think about, attracting the right people and retaining the right people, I'm 35 and
Yeah,
I know people, including myself, that move around quite a bit, 2, 3 years max, and they're moving on to the next job, the next role. And that's partly down to technology and AI, and people are learning quick, they're moving fast. They also want businesses that with purpose, that do actually care. So if you're a business and you're in the tech world, for example, if you're recruiting a senior sales director or a head of product or whatever it is, you don't want them for 6 months or 12 months or 2 years. You want them for the 5, 10 years if you can.
that's
But
it.
you're only going to do that by really showing them that you care and by offering them something that is more than just a number. It's not just a salary, it's everything around that. And it's not just insurance benefits, it's flexible working, it's maternity policies, it's parental leave, it's all of that type of thing. And the impact to an individual, I think sometimes is overlooked. If
Yeah,
your employees can just get access to their benefits, whether that is to support around neurodiversity, whether that's support around their mental health, whether that's support around caring for their parents and also looking after kids, the sandwich generation, those types of benefits, they are being used and people do want them. So I think
yeah.
you've also got to think outside the box when you're trying to recruit people and retain people, and make sure you're talking about all of these benefits because they have a huge impact.
They definitely do. So, like, we're talking about this, and I want to ask this question. I think we've answered it, but I want us to answer it again to make sure people truthfully understand what we're saying. So, like, how does a strong benefits strategy help you with attraction and retention? Because I feel like we've got to bullet point it and say it again for people to truthfully understand the importance of this right now.
Yeah, no, massively. And actually, look, when you're thinking about recruiting people, one of the things that I see a lot, and I see
Mhm.
job ads all the time on LinkedIn, like I'm sure we all do.
Yeah,
And normally what happens is the benefits are right at the very bottom. They're a bullet point list
mhm.
of insurance products that
Yeah,
people that don't work in the industry, like me, would generally think, yeah, okay, whatever. Don't,
yeah,
don't understand it. And it'll be things like, life insurance, private medical insurance, health cash plan, EAP, And to most people that don't work in this world, they look at those benefits and think, "Oh, I don't know, but the salary's £35,000, and actually, I think I can do the job."
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if you've got a really strong benefits package, you can communicate those benefits in your job ads, in your interviews, right at the very start, to tell people, we really care about you. We're doing this for your physical well-being. We're doing this for your mental well-being. We're doing this for your financial well-being. We want to look after you from when you join right the way throughout your career, all of that journey.
Yeah.
And you can do that when you're recruiting. You can do that from the first time you speak to someone about a job at your organization. But if you don't have a benefit strategy and or a benefits package, you can't even have the conversation. So when your recruiters
Yeah.
are banging the phones and banging LinkedIn and putting their job ads out, having that benefit strategy makes a huge difference, because you're up against companies that don't have a strategy, that have a list of random benefits that people don't
Mhm.
understand. And that is really going to differentiate you and your organization
Yeah.
versus your competitors. And when we're thinking about, it's a tough market and there's lots of people applying for jobs, you want the right people. There's a
Excellent.
massive impact there. And I think in terms of retention, we have touched on this already, but retention
Mhm.
is key. And actually, if you're an organization, times are tight, budgets are tough, you can't always just increase salaries or give people the best pay rises.
Right.
That's where you need to leverage a really strong benefits package and the strategy that sits around it. So
Mhm.
your employees know, we don't just have benefits, but we have benefits that matter, that make a difference, that I really understand. And
Mhm.
that's where employees will think twice when they get approached by your competitors and other jobs. And actually, it's not just about money then, it's about way more than that. It's about purpose, it's about their well-being, it's about their whole journey with your organization. And there are two key ways there that you can attract the right people and
Yeah.
you can retain the best people, because it's all about strategy and having that benefits package that works for the individual and the business.
That makes complete sense. And I love that. I thank you for drilling down into that, because I think people really do need to understand and focus on that. So, if we think about what we've spoken about so far, if a company wanted to improve their benefits engagement this quarter, what's one practical thing that they can start doing?
Yeah, this is a great question. And if it was me, I would say run a benefits audit. And what I mean by that is, if you're a HR leader or you're a business leader in your organization, send a very quick poll or survey or email, however you do it, send something to all of your staff and say, as a business, we invest X amount on your benefits. We invest £500 a year on average per person in your employee benefits.
Yeah.
Here's what the benefits are. And then ask the workforce, do you know what these benefits are? Do you understand what the benefits are? And how would you use the benefits?
Mhm.
Because actually, that's when you're going to get people that really come back to you and say, I didn't realize we had those benefits. I
Got
don't
it.
know what private medical insurance is.
Yeah.
How do we use the pension? Oh, what's the dental benefit we've got access to? And that will immediately, that email, that poll, that survey will immediately tell that HR leader or business leader, actually, we do have benefits, but it will tell you, do people understand the benefits? Do people know what those benefits are? And you'll find there's pinch points. And it might be everybody knows and understands the pension,
Yeah.
but they don't understand what the private medical insurance is, or they don't understand the mental health support, or they didn't know they had access to financial coaching, or whatever the benefit is. And
Yeah.
that's really then look down as a leadership team and say, well, we're spending X amount of thousands of pounds on these benefits. And our people are telling us they don't know they've got access to it, they don't know where to go, and they don't know the value of it. So
Yeah.
straight away, if you want to improve benefits engagement, you can focus on those key areas, focus on those burning fires, and start to push those benefits, communicate those benefits, work with a broker and a consultant, and really nail down that engagement plan. But if you don't ask people, you're never going to know.
Okay. That makes sense. And I've got a question that popped up as you were talking. I think we kind of answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, is a bigger benefits package always better, or can too much choice actually reduce employee engagement in the benefits packages that you have?
Yeah, it's a good question, but actually, it depends on the benefits package you have and why you've got it, because actually adding more to the list doesn't always help. You know,
Hmm.
you talked about that bullet point list of benefits in the job ad, right? That bullet point list can be 10, 15, 20 bullet points long. It doesn't matter if
Yeah,
nobody knows what they are. They don't know how to use the benefits. You can keep adding and spending, but it's not gonna move the needle. It's not gonna make a change. But also, it might well be that in your organization, you've got certain areas around absence or sickness or physical health that you need to focus on. That means you do have, more than one benefit. You do have three, four, five, six different employee benefits that are
yeah,
being used and engaged with. Um, I do think there's a point around benefits platforms and also voluntary benefits around, you know, a lot of companies now are starting to think about, do we give people access to a budget, like a monthly allowance they can just spend on a platform?
right.
For me, that on its own isn't the answer. And
Hmm.
it's not the answer for me because if Paul is spending his £50 a month on new running shoes or shakes that are going to help
Going
him
to the gym or something. Or,
exactly go into
yeah,
the gym or this, that, and the other. But Paul hasn't got any other benefits that are going to help him get back to work if he gets sick. That's not going to make sure his family protected financially if the worst happens.
hmm,
Actually, I think there's a question there around benefits are for employees, but are also for the business. And there's
yeah,
always that commercial conversation. So I think having choice is okay, but I think actually, particularly for smaller businesses, small to medium enterprises, 30 to 500 people, they need to be looking around the strategy and saying, what benefits should we have? Why are people going off absent or why are people going off sick? What are the problems we've got within the workforce around health and well-being? And then putting in benefits packages that really make a difference and that are tailored to their organization. So I think in terms of the question or the answer to the question, having a bigger benefits package isn't always the answer and doesn't always make it better.
yeah,
But it's not to say that's the wrong thing to do. But also think about it from an employee perspective, but also from a business perspective. If you give someone or give people access to private medical insurance, they can speak to a GP online within a couple of hours. That if they need to go and see a consultant or a health specialist, they'll see someone within 2 or 3 weeks. They're not going to have a 6 month wait on the NHS.
yeah.
Well, that has an impact on the business and a positive impact because people are getting treated and seen, etc., quicker, which means they can actually come back to the business. And that's
That's
not a
it.
bad thing. It's not a dirty phrase. That's the benefit from a
That's
business
it.
perspective of
Yeah.
giving people access to these benefits.
No, I truly understand that. I remember working with somebody that needed quite significant back surgery, and it would have been like a 2 year wait or something like that on the NHS, but then dug into our private healthcare, was able to see a consultant within a week, and was able to go in for surgery within like 3 weeks, scheduled around work and everything else, to go and have that surgery done. And because it was a more private doctor, they had a kind of a new technique which was less invasive, which means instead of having like a 6 weeks recovery, it was a 3 week recovery. So like it was a win-win for everybody. And it's about having those things in place that people can actively access and know that they can access. Like
Absolutely.
as you were talking just now, I was thinking, you know, a lot of smaller businesses, the startups, people that are just kind of, they've got to their first five, maybe six people, maybe there's three people, and they're thinking, well, I'm too small, it's going to cost a fortune, I don't have the money to do this. Like, benefits don't have to be expensive, right? Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, talking about pricing and things like that, it can get into a very long conversation. But I think overall, benefits have this, or people think benefits are expensive. And
Yeah.
small companies, they might have 5 staff, 10 staff, they're just starting out. They think, oh, benefits, employee benefits, platforms, private medical care, life insurance. Wow, these are really expensive benefits. But
Hmm.
actually, not. And I think what I would say is have the conversation. If you're a HR manager in a small business, if you're a business owner, if you're just starting your own business and you're a leader and you want to look after your people and you want to do the right thing and offer people benefits, because we've just talked about talent attraction, getting people into the business, etc., go and have a conversation with a specialist in the area, so an employee benefits broker, an employee benefits consultant, not just me, but also me, but go and have a chat with someone around these are what my requirements are.
Mhm.
This is our business. This is the demographic. This is the setup. And just start to have a think around what that strategy might look like. And if you're a small business, the word strategy gets thrown around so much, but just think it
Yeah.
through. Just literally speak to a specialist and say, we've got 10 people. We really want to offer them, private healthcare or this or that, and talk to a specialist, and a broker or a consultant will be able to do all of that work and talk about the commercials, the pricing, negotiate with different providers and insurers. And that's really important. So what I would say is, whilst not talking about pricing specifically, because there are
Yeah.
lots of different things
There's
involved,
lots of different factors.
but yeah, don't worry and don't think, oh, they're too expensive, we can't do it, because you're probably missing a trick, because you don't have to do everything straight away. And these benefits are really not that expensive, particularly when you compare them to different costs within your business. I regularly sit down with small business owners and say, compare your private medical contract to this contract or your stationary contract or whatever it might be, and the difference is huge.
I know, like people will pay like £5,000 for leasing a printer for a year, but then like bulk and do a double take if they've got to pay anything like that for an employee benefit.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or, what I see as well with small businesses, generally speaking, is that
Yeah,
they'll bring in the masseuse or the person to talk
yeah,
about, or they'll get someone to come in and do a session with the nice food and talk about nutrition, but it's cost them a few £100s and there's no return on investment. You can't track the engagement, and
yeah.
they do it several times in a year. And I would say, take that investment if you're doing something like that and invest it into a structured benefits package, because you'll definitely get a better return on investment and you'll have a
Mhm.
big impact in your business.
I love that. So, like, as we're rounding out and thinking about it, you said about find a specialist, find somebody, not necessarily you, but I'd love people to connect in with you. So, give everybody an overview on the Connolly Collective, what the business does, and how it can support people, founders, or established businesses get to their benefit needs.
Yeah, no, great, thanks. So yeah, look, Connolly Collective, we've been going for 8 weeks as of middle of June in 2026, but using 10, 11 years worth of experience within the employee benefits market. So I founded the business because I kept seeing the same thing happen. I've worked for large insurers, I've worked for wellbeing providers, I've worked and dealt with employee benefits brokers. I've also spent 5 years being an employee benefits broker as an employee, and I'm always seeing the same gap happen around value, around communication. So, Connolly Collective is an FCA regulated employee benefits broker and consultant. We are your strategic benefits partner. So, we'll do all of the insurance broking of your benefits policies, we'll review the terms and conditions, the pricing, we'll negotiate with all the insurers if you've got benefits or if you're setting benefits up, and we'll make sure you get the best value for money. But also, we'll help you with the strategy, we'll help you communicate the benefits to your team. We'll do the on site presentations. We'll record short video content you can share with employees to get them engaged, to get them excited. We'll help you understand the value of those benefits and look at the utilization and the engagement data throughout the year. We're just a once a year broker. We're a strategic benefits partner. We work with companies that have got less than 1,000 people or 1,000 staff. From technology companies to recruitment, professional services, the legal sector.
Mhm.
And we really care. Like, having spent 10 years in this world,
Yeah.
um, we really care about making a difference, and actually not just being an insurance broker, not just focusing on, here's a spreadsheet of pricing, we're going to save you 2.5% this year. Let's think
Mhm.
value, the strategy. Let's do the communications. HR people, generally speaking, and
Yeah.
business leaders, they're on a treadmill. They're busy.
That's
Employee
it.
benefits is not their sole priority. It's not always the top of their list. Our job is to make it easier, to make it more fun, more exciting, and also to make sure people really get the value from their benefits, because
That's
that's where the business wins, that's where the employee wins, and that's where we win.
That's amazing. And I love that. I think that people will get a great set of skills, a great set of feedback, and a great set of support if they engage with you. I think the thing that resonated with me when we had our first conversation, you talking about a business that thought benefits were going to be really expensive, and actually you were able to set something up for like the cost of less than buying tea and coffee for the company for the year. And I
Exactly.
love that. I love that fact. Like, I think that people overthink it instead of actually sitting down with somebody like yourself and understanding that actually it's not going to cost me a fortune to provide a benefit that hits people wherever they're at in their employment life cycle. You know, as you said, right at the beginning, or somebody that's getting to retire at the end. Like, a good strategy hits all of those points. And I believe that you'll be able to support people in that. And that's really, really great. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I think that this is going to be so helpful for so many people that, as I said, have been overthinking it and think that they can't afford it and are providing like the most basic nest pensions,
Yeah.
and then thinking that they've done everything and walking away. You know, all those companies that give it to their execs, give the execs all of the benefits and the employees have nothing, and there's no balance, and it creates derision, you know, and division in the company. So
Yeah.
this is great. I really appreciate you spending time today.
Yeah. No, I've really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. Always happy to share my knowledge and experience. Happy to chat to people. People can find me on LinkedIn. Come and connect with me. Let's have a conversation. We're not a big corporate business. You won't have to speak to 10 different people. Let's just have a conversation, talk about it, and see if we can help each other out.
You'll find all of Paul's information in the caption attached to the video, so please go ahead and connect.